Thank you to my colleague from North Dakota farmers and manufacturers, because he's got a lot of manufacturing in his state as well. Have never had a better friend, and that's why he's so strongly supportive of this agreement, because it makes a big difference. My colleague from Arkansas just talked about the fact that in Arkansas, their two largest trading partners are Canada and Mexico. Same with Ohio. China is actually kind of a distant third, so these two countries are critical for our exports, and that's why this agreement is so important. I'm a former trade lawyer. I also was the U.S. trade representative under George W. Bush, and now I'm on the Finance Committee, which is a committee that handles these trade issues. And I got to tell you, I think having a balanced and healthy trade relationship is really important. We have to stand up for our country, and we need to enforce these agreements that we have. But we also need to expand the exports, because that's what creates jobs. By the way, better paying jobs. They pay about 16% more on average, better benefits. So that's why we need to be sure that we have agreements like this one. We've got about 5% of the world's population and about 25% of the world's economy. We need to sell our stuff overseas. It gives us access to the 95% of the consumers who live outside of our borders. Mexico and Canada, as I said, are our biggest trading partners. 39% of our exports go to Canada alone. That's twice the national average. All in all, Mexico and Canada now supports more than 12 million jobs nationally. That's according to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. 12 million jobs. We all know the existing agreement, this NAFTA agreement, North American Free Trade Agreement, has to be updated. It's now 25 years old, and it looks like it. It doesn't have a lot of things you would expect in any modern agreement, like how about taking care of the digital economy? So much of our economy now is over the internet, and yet there's nothing in this agreement that deals with that part of our economy. It's more than just a name change. It does include a lot of different aspects that we've put in more modern agreements that don't have in the NAFTA agreement. Another one is labor and environmental standards. Not only are the standards stronger, but they're enforceable under this new agreement. They are not enforceable under NAFTA. Auto jobs left the United States of America over the last 25 years. And one reason that this agreement is necessary is that the USMCA shifts more auto production back to the United States. My colleague from North Dakota talked about the manufacturing side. This is going to get United States automobile assembly lines humming again. And why? Because car parts and cars, if you want to get the better tariff treatment under the USMCA, they have to have higher content from North America. That means from us. So under NAFTA, that requirement was 62.5%. Under USMCA, it's 75%. By the way, also there's a new provision there that says 70% of the steel that's used in these automobiles has to be North American steel. So both of these things helps to ensure that we're going to have more manufacturing jobs in Ohio and around the country. American farmers, we've heard earlier, are going to gain access to new markets in Canada and Mexico. That's why Ohio farm groups are for this. That's why, by the way, nearly 1,000 farm groups from around the country now, I didn't know there were 1,000 farm groups, have come out to support this agreement. Small businesses in Ohio and around the country whose bottom line relies on these internet sales, internet commerce is going to have much more access to Canada and Mexico thanks to these new digital economy provisions. So kind of helps across the board. By the way, these stronger labor standards in Mexico we talked about are going to help level the playing field in terms of labor, because labor costs are less in Mexico, right? But it goes even further than that. It actually requires that 40 to 45% of a USMCA vehicle made in Mexico or anywhere in North America must be produced by workers making at least $16 an hour. This is kind of revolutionary. It's different kind of thinking in a trade agreement. Frankly, it's something that you would expect from a Democrat administration to put in an agreement, but it's in there, and it's going to help auto workers here in this country. Because of all these changes I've discussed, by the way, many of which, like the higher minimum wage or like the higher domestic content, have been advocated by Democrats in the past. That's been their approach to these trade agreements, not Republicans so much. But because of these provisions being so good for workers, I must tell you I'm surprised, even amazed, to see so many of my Democratic colleagues not stand up to support this agreement, because it has all these things that they said that they have wanted over the years, and they certainly don't like NAFTA. Many of them have campaigned against NAFTA for the past 25 years. And in a way, if you vote against USMCA, you know what you're stuck with, NAFTA. So in a way, you're voting for NAFTA if you vote against USMCA. That's the alternative here. It's a binary choice, as they say. It's either you're for this new agreement that's an improvement, or you go back to the status quo, which is NAFTA. So it'll be interesting to see, but my hope is that the media and others, outside groups, will hold people accountable to say, why would you be against an agreement that's better? even if it's not perfect from your point of view. By the way, no trade agreement is absolutely perfect. Every one of us would negotiate something slightly different. It's a question of trying to make sure you don't make the agreement, which is not perfect, the enemy of the good. And the good is to go to this new agreement. There's an outside independent study done by the International Trade Commission showing that 176,000 new jobs will be added to the U.S. economy just from this agreement alone. So this is better. So the bottom line, do we continue under the outdated NAFTA, or do we adopt these new USMCA standards that will allow us to compete better in the global 21st century economy? A vote against USMCA, again, is a vote for the status quo, without enforceable labor environmental standards, with a non-existent digital economy provision, and with outdated rules of origin that allow more automobiles and auto parts to be manufactured overseas instead of here in America. USMCA addresses and solves all those problems. I put together a little handy chart here to talk about some of these specific provisions. USMCA creates 176,000 new jobs. NAFTA? None. Enforceable labor environmental standards. USMCA, yes, check mark. Enforceable. Enforceable under NAFTA? No. Rules for the internet economy. New rules, again, to help small businesses, internet economy, check mark. NAFTA? No. 70% of the steel in vehicles have to be made in North America. That's a new provision, not in any other trade agreement, by the way. Yes on USMCA, no on NAFTA. Finally, 40 to 45% of the vehicles must be made by workers earning at least $16 an hour. NAFTA? Yes. No. NAFTA? No. USMCA? Yes. So, it's pretty clear to me, if you actually are honest about this, and you look at it objectively, and you say, there's two opportunities, which way would you go? So I hope my colleagues on the other side of the aisle take a look at this and apply logic and say, it might not be perfect, I might have wanted a little more here or there, but be sure that you're supporting what works for your workers. If we can get this agreement passed, the President will sign it. It will make a difference for employees, for farmers, workers, service providers in my home state of Ohio and around the country.